Hey everyone, welcome back to the creative process of Glacial Storm 4. And today we're going to talk about the plugins and the synths, the sounds that I used, and textures and whatever you want to call it, and the overall sounds that I chose for the song. This apparently a few people wanted me to say which plugins that I used for creating the song. So yeah, here's where you will know that. Okay, for the intro, it's better to start the video by saying that one of my favorite plugins is, without question, Morphin. Morphin has such a wide variety of sounds, wide variety of plugins, and you can pretty much do whatever you want with them. If you want to create an atmosphere, or you just want to create lead sounds, rhythm sounds, everything that you want to do, you go with Morphin for me. And I try to only use plugins that are available in FL Studio. So you see, you can't see here, but there's FL Keys, Morphin. I have 9 instances of Morphin. Have 3 of Poison. 3 of Poison. I have a few from Citrus. Have 2 for Sakura. And yeah, so we'll dive in that later. For the intro, I wanted to create something soft. So I browsed Morphin and found this plugin here, PRC Fairy, because it sounds kind of soothing and really soft, you know. So yeah, I don't think I made any changes to this one. What I try to do when I try to find a good plugin, I just keep messing around with it for a long ass time until I find something that actually satisfies me. So you just choose a little riff, for instance. So you can just mess around with it and see which sound will please you best. So following that, we have the same plugin here, but on the intro support I used Morphin one more time for these. First the background. Right, there's a small background here that's also Morphin, which sounds like this. It's a very pretty calm thingy that you would like to have. The rack is F6. Okay, so yeah, this one is Voices in the Wind. Yeah, it kind of creates a good atmosphere for the song, so I went on with that. And then later we do have the strings that come in, and if I'm not mistaken, this is also Morphin string section. Quite suggestive, right? Which kind of goes. So I used it for the first support, but later I went down with the notes and added another plugin, which is Morphin 4. You see, I am so into Morphin. Oh, drug pun there. Okay, I hate drugs. Which is a sinker. I have no idea which sound it has. Yeah, it kind of has a cool sound to add within with the strings. But for the lead part here, I added the unison with bell. That the best option that I have was glass, which where it is here. Sounds cool, right? So if you give the right amount of spotlight to certain notes, you can create a really distinguished sound. Yeah, sounds pretty good. Then piano come in, which is FL keys, normal, just regular FL keys. Grand piano. Alright, and then the end I blended with morphine again. But that's not the correct, it's a PRC, do you remember? Fairy. Yeah, that's the one. So yeah, when you combine such instruments, I mean, you have the piano, you have the bell, which is glass, and then you have morphine doing that. It kind of blends well together to give place to the melody in the intro, which I wanted something that sounded more like a lead part, so it kind of had to have some gain to it, which will come here to morphine 6. Which is morphine 6 and 7. Let's surf and solo. It kind of has that cool sound that still sounds like something sliding upwards. And if you use just the right amount, it can sound pretty cool with that. And also we have morphine 7, which is aggressive odyssey. Again, this morphine usually has this kind of slide property. Which I find kind of interesting, but if you use it just well enough, it sounds something like this. And this part specifically, it kind of gives a cool motion to the lead, yeah. So later then, oh, okay, here we have the bass parts, and the bass parts I mainly used two plugins. I used Fat and I used Boo Bass. I was going to go only with Fat, but I felt like Boo Bass gives another depth to the bass section, which was kind of needed for me. I felt like it was too empty without that, so here's what we got. It sounds pretty cool to me. So it gives a lot of low end to the sound, so you can support the leads better. For the intro solo, I started to use Basic. Basic is just a great plugin to have if you're going for really fast leads, because it doesn't get too much in the way of the sound, but you need to be careful to adjust it kind of correctly. I placed the modulation right in the middle and remove some of the effects. I don't know now off the top of my head which effects that I changed it. But yeah, that's the kind of sound that I wanted to go, because if you see, there's almost virtually no sustain. So you can create pretty good lead sounds off of that. And also here we have joining it Poison 2 with, if I recall correctly, it's Lead Ninja. Yes, it is Lead Ninja. But Lead Ninja has a thing. Again, this is all standard plugins that come with FL Studio. So yeah, that's what I was going for, because I didn't want to use too much of external plugins. So Lead Ninja has this weird sound at first that kind of has a detune to it, kind of a two sounds going on at once. So I removed that. I think it's from this parameter here using detune. So I removed that. Kind of remove the delay as well, because it's boring. Yeah, I didn't want that kind of sound to happen. Just wanted something clean for the lead parts, otherwise it just gets too messy. Okay. For the intro patterns, if I'm not mistaken, I use the same thing. Basic but not Poison 2. No, it was Poison 2. I'm mistaken. So yeah, basically same sound. Alright, but here we also have the intro rhythm, which continues to be Morphin 6 and 7, the same sounds that I was using for the lead part in the early verse. And you see, I dragged it a bit here so we can have that kind of slide sound to it. Kind of sound not like you're just picking notes, you know, you're kind of just sliding down the fretboard with playing pickups with a good sustain. Hello, Steve Vai. And sorry. And yeah, that's all those sounds that I have so far. For the chorus, let's see what we have here. I basically kept Morphin 6 and 7, like we were talking about. These, let me see, 6 and 7 is Surf and Solo and Aggressive Odyssey. But now I added Square Purity too. For a long ass time, I've really been into Square Purity. So, but I changed it a bit. I removed the delay and I placed the modulation all the way over here, so we can have this sound. It's kind of a more leady sound for me. So when you mix that with other plugins that have a bit more of a low end, such as Morphin 6, it kind of complements the whole tone of the thing. But I also did the support for the chorus, which was basic, but not that high, and this kind of stuff, you know, you try to go for the lower end to give the sense of that you're strumming. Again, if you notice how the notes are spaced out, I talked about last video. Kind of gives the song a lot more support. The bass parts, again, it's all fat. It's all fat and boo bass, no exceptions. Yeah, pretty simple, right? We'll talk about the building the notes for the bass parts and the rhythm parts on the next video. So let's not get ahead of ourselves here. And for the chorus variation, still the same 4 plugins: Morphin 6, 7, Basic, and Square Purity, which together form this sound, which I find personally really entertaining to put on a song. You see, you have both Morphin, one of the Morphins, and Basic attacking the low end of the song. You have the other Morphin kind of in the middle, and Square Purity a little bit higher. So you kind of create a whole tone with that. There's nothing missing. It's not too high and not too low. Which is perfect for a chorus, right? If it's a solo, it's okay to go all high ends. But for this part, I personally felt that it was required to have a lot more low end than a high end, so kind of tried to find a balance there. For the intro strumming, again, basic, but this time we're introducing Poison 3, which, if I'm not mistaken, it's Got Milk. Yeah, the famous Got Milk. Schmutz uses it a lot. You might not recognize it like that, but if you go a lot higher, you will recognize that kind of sound. Right? When you put Got Milk together with Basic, you get this sound, which for me it lacks a bit of a low end, but it still sounds great. which is why I try to use a lot of low notes here to compensate for the fact that there's virtually no low end to this parts. But if you find yourself at that situation, you should probably also mix it with another thing that has a low end, which in my case was Morphin 6 and 7, which was Lead, Surfing, Aggressive, Surfing Solo, and Aggressive Odyssey. So you see, it gives the perfect low end sound for that verse. Now the guitar variation. First I wrote it on the guitar, like you saw in the first video. Use Morphin 6 and 7 for the bass of it, but I also use Square Purity and Poison 2 again, which is Lead Ninja. So this is the sound that it creates. You see, I'm staying more on the low end of sounds, with a little bit in the middle with I guess it's Square Purity or Poison 2, I don't even remember. But the lead, I also use Square Purity, so Square Purity appears here twice to do this kind of crispy sound, which is a lot higher in the register than it was on the other pattern. And this it's mounted with Morphin 8, which might be my favorite plugin so far on my recent FL Studio adventures, which is the PWM filter. Yeah, that kind of sound. I use it a lot in this song. It's kind of hard to find a good place for that, but I wanted to use it especially for this part, which kind of create the wow 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 wow. So yeah, those are the two sounds, and they sound like this together. Again, you should always try to mess around with this part of FL Studio, the volume of the notes, if you want to give some focus to a few notes, so that you don't have that much trouble in the mix later, but you still have to mix the shit out of this. Alright, so we're back with chorus lead, and okay, twin solo. Oh, this is amazing. Twin solo was Morphin 6, the classic. Really good lead sound. Square Purity appears in the end, only for the kind of giving it a bit of a low end to the overall lead. Poison 2 is present there, but I use it a lot higher. Lead Ninja again, and Sakura is at the end too. I guess the oh yeah, right. This plugin here that creates that kind of sound after the end, you know. See. Is it raining? Oh, okay. So Sakura here. Fuck. Click the wrong place. Reverse Alien Swell. That's the name. It creates that kind of vibration at the end, which I use to chart to create the chart. Yeah, I found it like it was kind of a cool plugin to have. But yeah, the combination of Morphin 6 and not Square Purity, and Poison 2 sounds like this. They do a great harmony together, you know. Just check this out. I just had problems with the volume, so which is why this part is a lot higher here. So to give focus to, because Poison 2 Lead Ninja only acts as a support here. So in the parts that I needed it to have more focus, to be on the same level than the other one, I just raised the volume here, so it will be more noticeable. And yeah, that's it for this part. Main melody is just FL keys, plain FL keys. And okay, Glacial theme. Again, the bass is always fat and boo bass. No other plugins were used for the bass. Kind of cool. For the Glacial Storm theme, I introduced Formant 2, which is a very known sound as well. Exile Lord uses it a lot, I think. Lemon X Reaper does too. So Inhumane. So it kind of has this not evil vibe, but it's darker, you know. So I felt it would be good for a kind of a mood change for the song. Together with it, I used basic, kind of a low basic. Yeah, but also keeping it a bit higher to give a little more focus. And Square Purity was too low. Square Purity was the one that I chose to represent the low end of this particular pattern. So it sounds good together. Take a look. Okay, same plugins for the variation. And we have the fast solo section. For this part, I tried to mess around with more than just one plugin. So what I used here mostly was Basic, because Basic, like I said, has a pretty good sound for a lead since it's short and crispy. So we also have Square Purity coming in here, and later we have, oh no, it's all together, Poison 3, which is Got Milk. It's kind of a characteristic sound. It sounds good for lead too, since it's kind of short. But for the next section, oh yeah, now I remember, for the next section that I used a different plugin. So for this part, I just messed around with the notes and tried to find good plugins that would match. So at first, I think I removed Poison 3, but it felt like incomplete without it. So here's how the actual sound is. If you take away the Poison 3, it's better. And these plugins, if you just do the correct focus on the notes, they don't sound polluted at all. Right, for the next section we have the twin solo section, which remain with Square Purity, but I introduced Let Ninja as well. Again, I had to raise the volume for the chord parts because I wanted them to feel like true harmonies. So if they were just at the same level, you would not listen to that. Okay, moving on. Again, the rhythm is still. Oh yeah, right. This rhythm part specifically has the former plugins that I was using. But alongside with it, we still have the main bass theme. Since it's the solo, kind of the rhythm guitar goes back and does the rhythm bass, and the twin solo, the solo section just go wild. Okay, we have guitar variation again. The unnecessary piano madness that I talked about last time. It's just morphing this sound that I love. Along with Sakura too, to give it a bit of more crispy sound, because the Morphin 8, which is a PWM filter, it sounds too liquid, so to speak. I don't know. So I kind of need to add a little bit more flavor to it. So this is how it came into existence. Because the Sakura 2 provides this kind of sound. Sakura 2 is, in fact, strummer FG. I will use it again sometime. I don't know. So chorus lead, chorus support, been through that. Sneaky rhythm, still keeping the formant, but instead of using formant with Morphine 6, I use with Morphine 7, which is this one. It kind of feels like a pad, you know. So it sounds really good together when you have Square Purity doing the low end, and Basic just trying to follow along here for the kind of the palm muted part, so to speak. Alright. Yeah. The Glacial Storm, the evil theme for Glacial Storm is still Formant 2 and Basic only. I removed the Square Purity and the Morphine from it, so it sounds a lot more simple, but that's because we have a lot more notes here. So if I had too many plugins going on at the same time, it would sound too weird, and this video is going to be so long. See? Alright, so for the bass, still fat and boo bass. Simple bass line, still fat and boo bass. And for the really fast trills part, I also added the creepy choir, which I found on Morphine too. You see, I am fanatic about Morphine. And Morphine 9 is choir, quite suggestive. Kind of sounds bad when you go too high, but the only bad part about this plugin that it kind of cuts off before it starts again when it switch notes. So what I had to do was to find another plugin to kind of support that, which was the bass line. It goes straight into it. Alright, so we remove the lead parts here, and continue with the Sneaky Rhythm and the Glacial Rhythm theme, which is again Morphine 7 and Formant. And we arrive at Odd Bridge, which is one of my favorite sections. So here the main circuit of this is combining just Square Purity and Morphine 8, two great lead sounds to create this. So you see, I used Square Purity kind of in the high end of this, but Morphine 8 kind of in the low end. It sounds good together because they are both lead parts, but Morphine 8 usually works better for the high end of the pattern. But for this time, if you do it on the lower side instead of Square Purity, you switch places with them, it creates this really nice texture. Okay, like I said in the last video, for the odd solo, I kind of wanted to feel like it was all over the place, which is why there are so many. The solo is entirely in octaves, and also it's hard to find a solo that matches that chord progression. But here, the main secret was using Morphine 6 because it has this kind of squeaky sound, and if you support it with Basic, doing some of the lower parts, you kind of create this cool. How can I say it? It's kind of a squeaky vibe, really. Alright, for the strumming part that comes right after, just use Formant 2 along with Basic 2. If you have that along with Square Purity and Morphine 8, it just creates this really cool atmosphere. And use the same for this leftover solo, because I needed something to connect to the next part. And here comes the Genchi bridge. This was quite a tricky part for me to get the sound that I wanted, mainly because I used Formant 2 for the higher end of the part, but I also used a Basic for the really low part, and Poison 1, which is, I forgot which one it is. Poison 1 is Play Staccato. Didn't even know that I used that, but sounds cool. Yeah, I don't even remember doing this, but what I'm sure that I thought was like only Basic and what was it? Basic and Formant feels too incomplete, so I needed something else to kind of make up for it, which is how this came into existence. For the bass part, still Boo Bass and Fat. Only this time I didn't do the triplets, since they needed more. They would need to play more of a support role. So quite funny. So yeah, that carries on for a while. Then we are back with the Glacial Rhythm theme, but this time I also added the auxiliary part for the tap notes, and I use Basic because if you do them like this, kind of on the mid range, it kind of feels like a fluid plugging instead of a crispy one when you use it really high. Alright, so we arrive at the cold fucking solo. There are a lot of different plugins to talk about there. So first, let's go over the rhythm. The rhythm part is basically Formant 2 and Square Purity. Square Purity doing the low end again, and this is what we have. Alright, cold solo bass, the bass part again, Fat and Boo Bass. I've probably said that too many times by now. Code solo. Let's see what we have here. We have 7 different plugins throughout the whole solo. So let's figure out which ones are used the most. Basic is used on the beginning. And okay, let's do it by parts, right? On the beginning we have Basic with, I kind of need 20-second pause here to say that you will not find a satisfying plugin that works on its own. I mean, you may have it, but it's better to try and mix it with other plugins to create the sound and the texture that you're looking for. So there's no real secret for that. You just create the pattern on a certain plugin and try over and over and over again different combinations until you get the sound that you want. So for this first part, first part I was going for something a little more crispy. So I probably did it with Poison 3. Let's see. Yeah, that's right. Anything else? Not Morphin, not Sakura. Poison 2, no, not Square Purity either. So yeah, just Basic and Got Milk. It kind of has this raw sound that works a lot for the lead parts. For this next part, as I explained in the last video, I wanted a kind of something that feels like a guitar solo, like a sloppy guitar solo. So Morphine 8, the PWM filter, feels like the best option for that because it has this kind of sense of motion. But I used it in combination with another thing. Was it Square Purity? Yes, it was. right? So just to change things a little bit, I used LED Ninja on this next part, but I use it as well with something that will feel a little more wacky, which is Poison 2. No, it's LED Ninja. Poison 2 is LED Ninja, my bad. What was the next one? Not Poison 3. Was it Morphin 6? Yes, it was, because Morphin again has this kind of a whoop whoop sound, which is what I was going for here. So together with LED Ninja works here to give more of a support part to this plugin. And this last ascending just sound cool as fuck with this plugin. With this combination of plugins, that is. For the last solo, I didn't know quite well what to do, so I used Got Milk, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, along with, let me hear it. I have no idea. It was not Morphin 8, it was Sakura, no. Poison 2, no. Square Purity, yeah, Square Purity. Square Purity is kind of playing the support bass to Got Milk here. I felt afterwards that it was a bit too crispy for what I was going for, but I was too lazy to change it back. That's the truth. And for the lead part in the chiasm solo, I only used Got Milk, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, I used another one, which sounds like Basic. Yeah, Basic. So both crispy sounds that don't have a lot of sustain and not too much low end. So I ended it as well with almost all of the plugins, if I'm not mistaken. But I added Sakura here for that. Again, this kind of ending. I really enjoyed that, so I used it twice on the same song. Have the intro again. This first auxiliary part, I did it with Sakura too. If you remember that I was talking earlier, the first auxiliary part was with Basic. But this time I used Sakura for the first part because it sounded more like you're picking a sitar, sort of. Or harpsichord, I have no idea what the instruments are called, sorry. Yeah, I added both of those then, together with the Glacial Rhythm theme that we already went through. And then added the piano here, FL keys as well. Only with a little bit more of sustain. That kind of feels good. And then for this winter variation part, I think this is the tone that I like the best in the songs. I use Morphin 6, I use Basic and Square Purity. That combination is so fulfilling because you have this on the higher end of the part, as well as Basic doing the low part, and Square Purity doing kind of the middle part. Sounds so good. So yeah, then it changed into the winter tap, which I obviously had to change it a bit. So I lowered the volume for Morphin 6 so it could have this whoop whoop sound, but don't ruin the mix. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that sounded good to me. The winter prelude as well, it was the same plugins. And also going really high with the Morphin here because it's not, when it reaches this note, it's like it creates a perfect climax to what's going next, which is obviously winter solo. And yeah, so we come finally to Winter Solo. I have on the rhythm part, we have Square Purity doing the low part. Do we have other things? No, only Square Purity. And these are just to complement the bass part, which is again Fat and Boo bass. You guys will not forget that. Alright, this video is 40 minutes long already, and we're going to Winter Solo, okay? Gosh, no one is ever gonna watch this. So for this, I use pretty much 4 plugins. Morphine 6, Basic, Square Purity, and Morphine 8 at the end. Why? Because of the Quad 6 part. So most of it is Morphine 6, Basic, and Square Purity, which are the same plugins that I use for the Winter Tap and the Winter Verse, you know, and it kind of creates this really cool sound that feels complete. Like I said, you have a lot of you have the low end, the mid range, and the high end of the register. I don't even know if I'm talking sense into this thing, but anyway, here's the sound that it makes. Oh, and since Morphine 6 has a lot of highlight here, because it is this more kind of a squeaky sound, I decided to use it to do the harmony part here, which are the chords, the chord taps, and kept it all the same on the other part, because this one speaks for itself. So it was the only one that I had to be different. If I added another one, it would be too polluted. So here's the result of that. Again, you need to focus on the main notes, so it doesn't feel like a giant wall of shit sounds. And for this part, I started to raise it in an octave, so it would create a kind of sense of urgency, even though all the rest it remains the same. I'm moving Morphine 6 upwards, so you can sense that you're getting more and more lead parts and increasing the difficulty. At least that's how I feel. So it is my song. I do whatever the fuck I want. So if you don't feel like that, fuck you. Alright, it's time to go crazy here. It works, right? Alright, for this part I kept the focus on the higher notes, but I lowered the volume for the rest of the support notes, so you can still feel like you're doing quads but not get a wall of sound. That doesn't sound good. And for the last part, I went back down with Morphine 6, because Morphine 8 would take the lead to form the quad zig sound that I was looking for. Alright, last time I was too lazy to do this, but this time let's actually do this. I'm gonna isolate the other plugins and leave only Morphine 8 so you guys can hear the effect that it has on the melody. Here's again. Right, it kind of creates the movement that I was looking for to create quad zig patterns. And if you add all the other instruments back in, you will have this. And that's it. We just repeat the beginning and without the support parts, and we end it with the piano, the same intro piano, only this time we ended in a big D chord. it kind of feels like an epic ending to any song. Very dramatic D chord, and with this last echo from the Glass plugin. Dun, 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 dun. So yeah, I guess I covered all of the plugins that I used for Glacial Storm. Don't think I am forgetting anything. Let's see here. Talk about all of those. Yeah, Greasy was not used. I was going to use it for the bass, but I couldn't find any of the configurations that really I was looking for, so I just gave up on it, but it's still open in the project. Alright, 46 minutes of video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Somebody please FC Glacial Storm 4 so I can release the plus version. Like I said before, the FLP will be released on the last video or the video after that, I don't know yet. But yeah, did you like the video? Honestly, I feel like I'm just being boring talking over a song that nobody cares. But I promised that I would make this, so I'll continue to make this. I hope you find something useful out of this, honestly. If anyone can use any of the information that I talked about here, even if it's a different plugin that they didn't know about, I already feel accomplished. So yeah, I'll try to record more videos now. For that, we're missing rhythm, we're missing oh, one last plugin that I forgot to mention, which is the most important one of them all. It's Superior Drummer 3, which is everything related to drums. But we'll go over that on drums. The preset is one of the default presets that it comes with, and yeah, that's the plugin that I use for the drums. It's fucking important plugin for anyone to have, even if you're not writing EDM music and whatever FL guitar customs. It's still a pretty good plugin for whatever are your needs. Highly recommend this one. It's the only plugin on Glacial Storm 4 that's not a default of FL Studio. So yeah, like I said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see each other soon, I guess. See ya.